Welcome to Godprints, where stories of grief, faith, and healing come to life. Jenny Levitt is an author, mental health coach, and founder of Resilient Hope. Now, Jenny and Caleb share their journey through unimaginable loss, survivor's guilt, and the slow, sacred road toward healing. That even in the darkest nights, we will see God's fingerprints all over our story. If you or someone you love is navigating loss, survivor's guilt, or deep sorrow, join us. We're here to walk with you, cry with you, and remind you, you are not alone, and hope is still within reach. These are our stories. These are his Godprints. Let's begin.
So welcome back, I'm Jenny and this is Caleb, and we're continuing our conversation today about some areas of loss, but especially answering some difficult questions about siblings and what it's like with siblings that have lost a brother or a sister. So today we're going to pick back up with, I'm going to ask Caleb some questions, and we're going to start with one that as a parent, I wouldn't say I hate this question, but I'm not fond of it. When you're out and about and people ask me, so how many kids do you have? And I remember especially early on, that question alone could make me cry. Disclaimer, I'm known in the family as the crier, so that doesn't really account for much. But, it would, because I would never know how to answer that. And even to this day, almost 10 years later, it really depends on the situation. Is this just going to be a real quick, you're trying to be polite and then this is over? Or do you really want the story? I kind of have to play it by ear. But how do you answer the question if people ask you, so how many brothers and sisters you have, or how many siblings do you have? How do you feel about that question, and how have you responded?
Yeah, also for me, that kind of depends on the situation. Even like the time of the year. And I think what may make it a little bit more of a challenge for me is that besides Jacob, who we lost, I didn't have any other siblings. So if I really don't, if I'm really feeling like I really don't want to get into it today, then I'll just answer one and then just keep it there. Because if I say I don't have any, there is almost always the follow-up of, oh, so you're an only child, which I have learned that over the years. Then I have to go into the, well, no, I wasn't always, and then the whole story and everything. So I have learned that either I have to share the whole story or just leave it at one and kind of let it go. That's kind of how I have to deal with it. It really, if I'm already kind of, because by now, so 10 years in, I know that some days I'm just going to wake up and it's going to be one of those rough days. And sometimes you can kind of prep for it. So anniversary, the accident, special holidays. Yeah. But then other days it just kind of shows up and I'll wake up and I'm like, man, it's going to be a tough day, and I don't know why, so I pray about it for help. That at least helps me to get through the day, but God doesn't always take away the pain that I'm feeling. He's just there with me through it. But on those days, if it comes up, I'm just like one, and just kind of leave it there. And then also, if it's just in passing, and I'm at work and I gotta go somewhere and I don't got time for the whole long story, then it's kind of how I address it.
Well, that kind of leads into what I was going to ask you next was, so holidays and anniversaries are hard for anybody who's grieving, but with a sibling loss, what would you say, what is the hardest thing about holidays and anniversaries? How do you handle? Has it changed over the years?
I think so. Right after the accident, all the major holidays, they were kind of a fog still, because we were in and out of rehab and all that, and then we got back, and Thanksgiving, which was also Jacob's birthday, and so that's always kind of rough every year. But then even Christmas and all that, it was really, really difficult going forward, but with that first year, it was all such a blur. But then after that, at least the next couple of years, those were still really, really difficult for me at least. But then it was almost like I kind of learned from that, I guess, maybe. And so it wasn't something that I did consciously or even planned for, but it was like I was almost getting ready for them. So now I found that actually probably the week or two leading up to major holidays or the anniversaries are worse for me than the actual days. because it's like I'm almost like prepping. Oh, it's gonna be so bad, and then I get there and it hasn't been. But I've been anxious, kind of frustrated, kind of snappy for the last couple weeks. So it's just something actively trying to work on that, not making those so rough on me and my wife and you guys. And all
I will
that, so.
say that is, I don't think that's just exclusive to siblings or even to you. Your dad and I have talked about the same things. And I will say that for us, the part that has gotten better over the years is becoming aware of it, so that kind of, you're like, that's why I'm so cranky today. And sometimes, even this far out, sometimes it'll still be like, why didn't I think of this before now? I will say that one of the things that has made the 10-year anniversary of our loss that's coming up next month not seem quite so looming in my mind is that as a family we have an idea of something that we're going to be doing that we all feel like Jacob would really, really have enjoyed, and that it's going to honor his memory. And I think that has helped me. I'm hoping it will continue to help me as we actually get closer to the actual anniversary day, to have something in mind that I think kind of, in my mind at least, it flips the dread of 10 years without Jacob to, you know what, 10 years, but we're doing something that I think Jacob would have really loved. And I think every family is going to have to find what works for them. And we've talked about this before in some of our videos, but even the differences of like how you wanted to celebrate Christmas, or if one of us wants to go to the cemetery but the other one doesn't, or, you know, like just you're going to have to communicate. And I think as parents, well, even with parents who've lost, they have to communicate, but we have to remember our children that are still left behind, and not just assume that, like, if I want to go to the cemetery, that he wants to go to the cemetery. That's not necessarily the case on a special anniversary. Maybe, maybe not. That's where communication lines need to be open.
And even then, sometimes you just got to leave it at, hey, I want to go do this. You know, do you want to join? And they may just say no.
Yeah, and don't push it.
Don't push. Well, why not? I want to do it because then you're both going to be snapped and frustrated, and then you're probably going to, you know, say something you don't want to or that you shouldn't. So it's like sometimes. But in the midst of that, whoever does want to go do, you know, the graveside or whatever it may be, they're also feeling the weight of that grief heavier. So you both have to have that kind of grace
to allow each other to grieve differently. And men, women, parent, sibling, we had a different relationship with the person. There's so many nuances that make it impossible to say you should grieve this way, you should grieve that way.
Well, I wanted to offer some hope too. So for people who are maybe in that first year, or maybe within, you know, the first couple years, it does get easier. It does, and you begin, if you can view it in a healthy way. So once you can start to do that, then you can start to see that you're making new memories, and that they can replace the memories of whatever holiday that may be that was right after the accident. Because sometimes I think that that's almost what's holding us back, is because you remember, oh man, you know, last year Christmas was really, really hard. I don't know if I want to go through that again.
Yeah.
Instead, you can say, you know, so for us, we just had, you know, our first baby, and so, you know, mom is now a Grammy, and dad's now a granddad. So we got to have our first Thanksgiving and Christmas with Olivia, our baby, last year. So now that can place the ones that almost felt, like you said, with that looming, you know, ghost of the past in them.
Yeah.
Now you can start to place the brand new memories full of life and joy, hope, because life goes on and God is good. God blesses us with new mornings and new experiences. So we'll get better, and you can, you know, take whatever those bad memories that you feel that you're making right now, like those don't have to be your new normal, I guess you would say.
The story of the life forever. I was just telling somebody recently that, to me, our new grandbaby, Olivia Ray Levitt, is proof that if you cling to God, and my husband, Caleb's dad, calls it with white knuckle face sometimes. Sometimes you're just barely holding on, but if you hold on there, she is proof to me that you just hang in there. God does bring beauty from ashes. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes there's other hills and valleys that you gotta go through on the journey out of the grief.
Yeah.
but she is proof to me. And, you know, your wife, Crystal, they're blessings to our lives that we didn't have 10 years ago, that now we can look back and say, okay, we have not, and I'm sure we will not always make the best decisions in navigating this grief, but we have tried to get course directions if we needed to and get back to the place where we're trying to process with Christ first and foremost, and then just to be able to see the good thing that God is bringing out, that beauty from the ashes. That it saddens me sometimes that people get hunkered down in the grief and they don't ever get to see that.
Yeah.
Or they haven't seen it yet. If you're alive and breathing and you're watching this, there's always hope. As long as we have breath in our lungs, there's always hope that God can turn a page.
Yeah.
And God can bring breakthrough. So that's one of the things I love about this chapter in our story, is I think that's God just showing he's still faithful. Still faithful.